When I first met his mother, she hugged me so tightly I almost believed it meant something. She smelled of roses and expensive soap, the kind of woman who always looked ready for a photograph. She called me sweetheart and said I was exactly what her son needed. Back then, I didn't notice how she paused on the word needed, like it tasted bitter on her tongue. The first few months after our wedding felt peaceful. We had a rhythm. Sunday dinners at her house, polite small talk, carefully wrapped leftovers she insisted we take home. She'd ask about my job, about our apartment, about my parents. It all seemed like caring until the questions became comparisons. Does your mother cook much? Your job must keep you busy. No wonder he eats out so often. It was never a question, really. More like a pin pushed under the skin of every conversation. At first, I laughed it off. Every family has its quirks, right? She was just protective. But by the fourth dinner, the smiles started to feel rehearsed. My husband, Ethan, stared down at his plate more often, chewing quietly while she talked about how different he'd become. I barely see my son anymore, she sighed once while serving roast chicken. He used to call me every day. Now I have to check if he's even alive. Her eyes flicked toward me. I smiled, trying to make a joke out of it. We've both been busy lately, she smiled back thinly. I'm sure. That's how it began. The quiet erosion, little comments here and there, each one dressed up as concern. He doesn't go to church anymore. He used to help me around the house. He never laughs like he used to. It was as if every part of him she once loved was now a casualty of me. Ethan would roll his eyes afterward and say, ignore her, she's dramatic. So I did, until ignoring became impossible. The first real crack came one Saturday night. We were invited to a family gathering, his cousin's engagement. I was excited, dressed carefully, even brought a bottle of wine I knew his mother liked. But when we arrived, she greeted me with a half hug and a whisper that chilled me. You didn't have to come, dear. Everyone knows you prefer to keep him to yourself. I laughed, but it wasn't funny. The people around us heard it too, and they turned politely away. Halfway through the evening, I noticed her talking to a young woman I didn't recognize. Beautiful, polished, and far too comfortable with Ethan's mother. They laughed together, heads close like old friends. When she saw me watching, she beckoned us over. Ethan, she said brightly, do you remember Claire? He frowned slightly. No, I don't think so. Oh, come now, she insisted. You must. Her parents live 2 streets over from us. You both went to the same summer camp years ago. I always thought you two looked so lovely together. Claire smiled shyly, her hand brushing his arm in a way that made my chest tighten. Later that night, as we drove home, Ethan laughed it off. Mom's being mom. She collects people she thinks I should have dated. I tried to laugh too, but something inside me had shifted. It wasn't just meddling, it was precision. Over the next few weeks, Claire started appearing everywhere. She was coincidentally at the same grocery store I shopped at, commenting how much Ethan's mother had told her about me. She showed up at a charity event my mother-in-law invited us to. Once, she even dropped by our apartment, claiming she was in the neighborhood and that Ethan's mom told her to stop in and say hi. The strangest part? My mother-in-law never mentioned her again directly. She didn't have to. Claire's presence did the talking. Then came the text messages. I'd left Ethan's phone charging on the counter while he showered. It buzzed once, twice. The preview line on the screen read, "She's really not right for you, sweetheart." I froze. My stomach dropped. When I opened it, the full message was worse. It was from his mother. I know you'll get upset if I say this, but she's changing you. Everyone sees it. Even Claire said she worries about how isolated you seem. Please think about what you're giving up just to keep the peace. I couldn't read the rest. My hands were shaking too much. When he came out of the bathroom, I held the phone out to him. What is this? He looked at the message, then at me, exhaling hard. She's just being dramatic again. I'll handle it. Handle it how? I asked. He didn't answer. That night, I barely slept. Every word of that message replayed in my head. The way she'd used Claire's name so casually, as if she'd already been given a role in our marriage. The next weekend, she invited us for dinner again. I told Ethan I didn't feel up to it. He said he understood. But when he came back later that night, he looked pale and tired. What happened? I asked. He hesitated before answering. She had Claire over again. Said she was helping with the decorations for some charity thing. Then she started talking about us. Talking how? He looked down. She said she was worried. That maybe she was right all along. That marrying you so quickly was a mistake. Something inside me went cold. And what did you say? He didn't meet my eyes. I told her she needed to stop, but she just cried. Said she missed the old me. That's when I realized it wasn't about me at all. It was about her losing control of him. Still, the damage had already begun. Ethan started canceling plans with my family, saying he was tired. He stayed late at work. When I tried to talk about it, he'd grow defensive. She's my mother, he'd say. You don't understand what she's been through. But what about what I was going through? What about watching someone rewrite my marriage, one poisonous whisper at a time? The final straw came one Sunday when she called unexpectedly. Her voice was syrupy sweet. I'm having a small get-together next week, she said. Family and close friends. You should both come. Claire will be there too. She's been such a dear lately, always checking in on me. Such a caring girl. I could hear the smile in her voice. That's when I knew. This wasn't misunderstanding anymore. This was war, and she'd already chosen her soldier. It started small, a whisper here, a glance there, the kind of things you can't prove, because by the time you notice them, they're already spreading like smoke. The first time I realized something had changed, it was during dinner at Ethan's aunt's house. The conversation was light, wedding plans, vacations, meaningless chatter, until someone mentioned how jealous I'd been lately. Everyone laughed softly like it was harmless gossip. I blinked. Jealous? His aunt smiled awkwardly. Oh, sweetheart, don't take it the wrong way. Your mother-in-law just said you've been under a lot of stress. She worries about how protective you've become over Ethan. Protective. That was the word she used, the same word she'd once called devoted. When I looked at Ethan, he gave a helpless little shrug, the kind that said, please don't start anything here. So I smiled too, even though my throat burned. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed once. A text from his mother. You seem seemed distant tonight. I hope you're not upset. I just want everyone to understand you better. I typed and erased a dozen replies before turning the phone face down. Over the next few weeks, it got worse. Her tone changed. The subtle digs became open judgment. And somehow, everything she said about me reached other people before I even heard it myself. Ethan's cousin stopped calling. His sister, who used to visit often, started canceling plans at the last minute. And at the next family dinner, I caught a few sideways glances when I entered the room. That quiet kind of politeness people use when they've already chosen what they believe. Meanwhile, she played the perfect victim. The concerned mother, the kind-hearted matriarch, just trying to make peace. I'd walk into a room and hear her voice drop mid-sentence. She's just not herself lately, she'd whisper. I think she's struggling. She's been jealous. And the more I tried to defend myself, the guiltier I looked. One afternoon, I came home early and overheard Ethan on the phone. His tone was low, tense. Mom, stop saying that. She's not controlling me. She's just, he sighed. You're twisting things. I froze in the hallway listening, then quieter. No, she doesn't know you said that, and she doesn't need to. That night, I didn't ask. I just watched him eat dinner in silence, his shoulders heavy, eyes distant. It felt like there was someone else sitting between us. Invisible, poisonous, patient. By the next weekend, the lies had evolved into scenes. One afternoon, we stopped by his mother's house unannounced. She greeted us with exaggerated surprise. Oh, I wasn't expecting you to, she said brightly, adjusting her hair. But come in, come in. Claire just left. Her tone made the name linger in the air like perfume. Inside, I noticed 2 coffee mugs on the table, 2 plates, 2 napkins, one with lipstick smudged on the rim. She smiled sweetly at me. I was just helping Claire with some errands. She's such a lovely girl, you know. So polite, so grounded. Then she glanced at Ethan. You should have seen her helping me fix the garden lights. Reminded me of when you used to do it, dear. Her words weren't accidental. Every syllable was meant to slice. When I tried to talk to Ethan later, he sighed. You're overthinking this, he said. She's just being friendly. Friendly. That word hung in my head all night. But what happened next wasn't friendly. It was deliberate. A week later, his mother called to invite us for lunch. I agreed, hoping maybe peace was possible. When we arrived, the table was set for 4. Ethan, me, his mother, and Claire. Claire looked radiant, like she belonged there, pouring wine, helping in the kitchen, laughing too easily at his mother's jokes. Every gesture seemed rehearsed, like they'd been playing this scene long before I showed up. At one point, when Ethan and I stepped out to take a call, I returned to find them whispering. Both stopped when they saw me. His mother smiled. We were just talking about how much Ethan misses cooking with me. You don't cook much, do you? I swallowed hard. I work late sometimes. She nodded sympathetically. Of course, I understand. Some women just prioritize differently. Claire looked away, trying not to smile. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not from anger, but from disbelief. Because no matter how much I tried to keep my composure, no one saw me breaking. They only saw what she wanted them to see. After that lunch, Ethan grew quieter. He said he was confused, that maybe his mom was right, that I seemed tense all the time, distant, hard to talk to. I wanted to scream. To tell him that I wasn't distant, I was drowning. That his mother had built a cage out of kindness, and he couldn't even see the bars. But every time I opened my mouth, I heard her voice in his. She's not herself lately. She's struggling. One night, after another argument that went nowhere, I locked myself in the bathroom. I sat on the cold tile floor, clutching my phone, scrolling through old photos of us. His smile looked different in those. Softer, uncomplicated. Before the whispers, before the guilt. That's when I saw the latest text from her. Not to me this time, to him. You looked exhausted today, honey. I hate seeing you like this. You deserve peace, and I don't think you'll find it living like that. Claire says you seemed happier before. Maybe she's right. Before what? Before me? When he fell asleep, I walked into the living room and stared out the window. The reflection staring back didn't look like me anymore. Tired eyes, tight smile, hollow expression. It wasn't just that I was losing him. I was losing myself. Every day after that, I questioned my own reactions. Was I really jealous? Was I imagining the way she smirked when no one was watching? Was I becoming the woman she wanted everyone to believe I was? Because that's the worst part about manipulation. It makes you doubt the only truth you have left, your own mind. And by the time I realized how far she'd gone, it was already too late. The next Sunday dinner, something happened that would shatter everything. And this time, even Ethan wouldn't be able to ignore it. It happened on a Wednesday night, the kind of night that feels too quiet to trust. Ethan had fallen asleep early, his phone buzzing faintly on the nightstand beside him. The glow from the screen flickered against the wall, pulling my attention like a moth to a flame. I shouldn't have looked. But something inside me, the part that had been dismissed, gaslit, silenced, whispered, "You deserve to know the truth." So I picked it up. The screen lit up with a name I already dreaded. Claire. Just her name. No message preview. But the chat history was still open from earlier. "I can't keep doing this," Ethan had written. "She'll find out." "Let her," Claire replied. "It's better that way." For a moment, my stomach dropped. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I forced myself to scroll. There were photos. Some harmless, family events, his mother's backyard, coffee cups. But others told a different story. Screenshots of text exchanges between his mother and Claire. Private jokes, plans, comments about me. "She's too sensitive, poor thing," his mother had texted. "He needs someone steady. Someone like you. She'll lose it eventually," Claire replied. "She's already paranoid." I could feel my pulse in my throat. My body went cold all over. They weren't just manipulating Ethan, they were studying me. Every insecurity, every small reaction I'd ever had was turned into evidence that I was unstable. But then I saw a message that made me stop breathing altogether. It wasn't between his mother and Claire. It was between his mother and someone else. A contact labeled private. "She's been asking too many questions lately. I think Ethan's starting to see it too." "Don't worry," the reply said. "Keep pushing the narrative. Make her doubt herself. If she walks out on her own, phone, that's even better. The number wasn't saved, but I recognized the area code. It was the same one from a man Ethan's mother had been helping with some so-called family business for months, a man she'd mentioned in passing. Always casually, always vaguely. I didn't understand everything yet, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just a jealous mother-in-law meddling out of insecurity. This was orchestrated. I needed proof. Real proof. The next day, when Ethan left for work, I stayed behind. I told him I wasn't feeling well, which wasn't entirely a lie. I was shaking inside. I went into the guest room, the one his mother stayed in when she dropped by. I started small. Drawers, closet, bedside table. Nothing unusual. But then I noticed the photo frame on the dresser. The one she'd given us. The two of them smiling at his graduation. Something about it felt off. The frame was heavier than it looked. When I turned it over, a thin metal latch was slightly loose. I pried it open, and tucked behind the photo, taped flat against the backing, were printed screenshots of text messages. Hundreds of them. Most were between her and Claire. A few between her and Ethan. And in every one, she played the same part, the selfless, misunderstood mother who was worried about her son's well-being. She's been crying a lot lately. One message said, I think she's depressed. You should talk to her about seeing someone. She won't let me visit as much. Another read, she's isolating you. If this keeps up, you'll lose yourself too. And Claire always responded the same way. Maybe he already has. I sat on the floor surrounded by evidence of a psychological war I didn't even know I was fighting. I took pictures of everything. Every message, every date, every timestamp. My hands were steady now. Cold, but steady. Because this time, it wasn't about emotions or guessing or defending myself. This time it was about proof. But then I found something that made my heart stop. A single photo tucked into the stack of printed screenshots. It was of Ethan and Claire. Not romantic, but intimate enough to hurt. They were sitting at a restaurant, heads close together, laughing. Across the table, blurred but visible, was his mother, taking the photo herself. The caption she'd written on the back in neat cursive read, "He looks happiest when he's with her." That's when everything clicked. She hadn't just been pushing Claire toward Ethan. She'd been documenting their time together, building a case, creating the illusion that my marriage was already over, that I was the unstable wife standing in the way of her son's happiness. But buried deeper in the pile was a text that didn't fit her pattern. It was from Ethan to his mother, sent late at night, unsentimental, sharp. Stop it, Mom. I know what you're doing. And right below it, her reply, you'll thank me when she's gone. I did the same thing for your father. My breath caught. I did the same thing for your father. Those words changed everything. It wasn't just control. It was history repeating itself. She'd done this before. Manipulated, separated, destroyed a marriage under the guise of love. And Ethan had no idea how deep it went. That night, I sat in bed with my phone in my hands, waiting for him to come home. When he walked through the door, I saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the hesitation. He started to speak, but I cut him off. I need you to see something. I opened the folder on my phone, showing him the pictures, the texts, the screenshots, the photo of him and Claire. At first, he looked defensive, then confused. Then, slowly, his face drained of color. He scrolled in silence for nearly 10 minutes before whispering, "Where did you get this?" "From your mother's room." He didn't say another word, just sat there, shaking his head, breathing hard like someone who'd just been hit. When he finally looked up, his voice was quiet, almost broken. "She told me you'd become paranoid," he said, "that you were making things up." I met his eyes. "Do I still sound paranoid?" He swallowed hard, then looked away. No. That's when I knew the tide had turned. But the real truth, the reason behind why his mother had done this, was still hidden in those words she'd sent him. "I did the same thing for your father." And I was about to find out exactly what that meant, because Ethan wasn't the only person she'd broken before. Sunday dinners had always been her stage. She set the table like it was a performance. Polished silverware, glowing candles, and a centerpiece that screamed perfection. Everyone had a role, and tonight, apparently, so did I. I'd already decided this would be my last dinner at her house. I told Ethan as we drove over, voice flat, hands tight around the steering wheel. "I'm not doing this anymore," I said. He didn't argue. He just stared out the window silent, like he already knew what was waiting. When we walked in, the air was thick with that artificial sweetness, the kind that always meant trouble. She greeted us with her usual, "Oh, there you are," like she hadn't spent weeks trying to destroy me. And then, like clockwork, she turned toward the dining room and called out, "Claire!" "They're here." It felt like déjà vu, her words slicing through the air. Claire appeared from the kitchen, wearing a floral dress that matched the tablecloth. Perfectly placed, perfectly planned. She smiled nervously, as if she knew this wasn't a casual dinner at all. Everyone was already seated. Cousins, aunts, even Ethan's sister, who hadn't spoken to me in months. I took my seat at the far end of the table, right across from Claire. The mother-in-law poured wine, her voice too bright. "It's so nice to have everyone together," she said, letting the word linger. I thought we could all move past the tension and rebuild the family. She looked at me when she said tension, and I smiled back, because sometimes silence is louder than any insult. The meal started quietly, too quietly. Every fork scrape felt amplified. Every glance across the table carried weight. Then she began. "You know," she said, turning toward her sister with feigned concern, "I've been so worried about Ethan lately. He's been under so much pressure. Marriage can really wear on a man when his partner isn't emotionally balanced." The word hit like a slap. Balanced. I felt everyone's eyes flick toward me, the same uncomfortable mix of curiosity and pity I'd grown used to. Ethan stiffened beside beside me. Mom, don't, she smiled sweetly. I'm just being honest, dear. We all see it. You've been distant, tired. You deserve peace. Then she gestured toward Claire, who looked mortified. And this one's been such a help lately. She's always checking in, helping me with errands, keeping Ethan company when you're busy. That's when I realized she wasn't just trying to humiliate me. She was testing him, pushing him to choose a side in front of everyone. I glanced at him. His jaw was tight, eyes locked on his plate. For a moment, I thought he'd stay silent, that he'd let her finish the story she'd started. But then he put his fork down, slowly, deliberately. Enough, he said. The table went still. She blinked. Excuse me? He turned to her, voice steady but cold. I said enough, Mom. For the first time, she looked unsettled. Ethan, I'm just trying to what? He cut in. Ruin another marriage? The words dropped like a grenade. Her face froze. Around the table, murmurs rippled. What did you just say? She asked, laughing nervously. That's a cruel thing too. He stood up. No, what's cruel is what you did to Dad. What you're doing to me. The room went silent. You could have heard the clock ticking in the hallway. I watched her composure crack, her lips trembling, eyes darting around as if searching for control. Ethan, that's not fair. Your father left, he said sharply. He left because you made him believe he was miserable. Because you couldn't stand anyone loving someone more than they loved you. She flinched. That's not true. It is. His voice broke slightly. I was 13 when I heard you on the phone. You told him the same thing you told me, that his wife was unstable, manipulative, that she didn't deserve him. Her face turned pale. And when he finally walked out, he continued, you told everyone it was because she couldn't handle marriage. You rewrote the story, just like you're trying to do now. No one moved. Claire's hand trembled as she set her glass down. Ethan turned to her, eyes soft but firm. I know she dragged you into this, Claire. I know she made it sound like she was helping, but you deserve to know what kind of game this is. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone, the same one I'd shown him the messages on. He tapped the screen and held it up for everyone to see. Her text glowed under the dining room light, line after line of deceit. She's jealous. She's controlling. I think Ethan's starting to realize it too. Claire would be a better match for him anyway. The color drained from his mother's face. You went through my phone? No, he said. She did. And I'm glad she did because I wouldn't have believed it otherwise. The room was spinning. Gasps, whispers, the sound of glass shifting. I kept waiting for you to stop, he said quietly. But now I get it. You don't know how. Her voice broke, small and trembling. Everything I did was for you. He shook his head. No, you did it for control. Because love to you only exists when you're the one holding the strings. I sat frozen, watching the woman who had tormented me crumble piece by piece. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was relief. Like finally exhaling after years of holding my breath. Then Ethan turned to the family, his voice low but certain. She's been lying to all of you. About me, about her, about everything. He nodded toward me. If anyone deserves an apology, it's my wife. His mother's eyes filled with tears, but no one reached out to comfort her. The silence in the room was louder than any accusation could have been. Claire quietly stood up, her chair scraping the floor. I didn't know, she whispered, looking at me. I swear I didn't know. I nodded. Now you do. And with that, she left, walking past his mother, who sat frozen, tears streaking through her makeup. The performance was over. When we finally left that house, Ethan didn't say a word. He just reached for my hand, holding it like something he was afraid to lose again. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel invisible, but I knew the story wasn't done. Because what his mother confessed next would explain why she'd done it, and it would change how I saw her forever. We didn't go home that night. Ethan drove aimlessly, past quiet neighborhoods, shuttered gas stations, and stretches of highway that blurred into black. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was trembling, alive. The kind of silence that comes after something breaks and can't be put back together. I stared out the window, the reflection of streetlights flickering over my face like flashes of memory. Every word his mother had ever said, every smile that hid venom, every time I'd blamed myself for the cracks she'd carved between us. Finally, Ethan spoke. There's something I never told you, he said, his voice low, almost afraid of the words. My chest tightened. About your mom? He nodded. And my dad. He pulled over near an empty overlook, city lights glittering below us like 1,000 little secrets. He leaned forward, elbows on the steering wheel, voice trembling just enough for me to know this wasn't easy. She didn't just manipulate him, he said. She destroyed him. I turned to face him. When I was 13, he continued, my parents were already fighting constantly. I thought it was normal. Couples fight, right? But then I started noticing the pattern. Every time my dad got close to someone, a friend, a coworker, even his own sister, she'd twist it. She'd convince him they were laughing at him, betraying him, using him. He paused, exhaling like the weight of the past still clung to him. He started to believe her. He cut people off, quit his job, barely left the house. It was like she isolated him one piece at a time until there was nothing left of him except her voice. I whispered, that sounds like what she tried to do with us. He nodded slowly. Exactly. When he finally tried to leave, to get space, to think, she called everyone in the family, told them he'd abandoned us, said he'd fallen in love with someone else. But that wasn't true? I asked. Ethan's jaw clenched. No, the truth is worse. He reached into the glove compartment, pulling out an old envelope, edges worn and yellowed. I found this after he left, he said. Mom told me it was just one of his work files. I didn't read it until years later. He handed it to me. Inside was a letter, the handwriting shaky, the kind that comes from a man already half broken. Ethan, if you ever read this, I need you to know, I tried to stay. I tried to love your mother through her fears, her anger, her need to control everything. But love can't survive in a cage. She took pieces of me I'll never get back. Don't let her take them from you too. I'm leaving because it's the only way to stay alive. Dad, I read it twice before realizing my hands were shaking. Ethan's voice broke. She told everyone he died in a car accident 6 months later. I believed her. I turned toward him sharply. She lied about his death? He nodded, eyes glassy. Yeah, it wasn't until college that I found out he was still alive, in another state, remarried. He tried to reach me once, but she intercepted his letters. Said it was junk mail. She even forged one, pretending to be him, saying he didn't want to see me. I sat there in stunned silence. The image of his mother, elegant, composed, saintly, cracked apart in my mind. That's why you were so distant, I said softly. You were afraid I'd turn into her. He swallowed hard. Yeah, I didn't even realize it at first, but every time we argued, I'd hear her voice in my head, not yours. I kept pulling away because I thought love meant control, because she taught me that. I reached for his hand, feeling his pulse trembling beneath my fingers. You're not hurt, Ethan. You broke the cycle. He gave a faint, broken laugh. Not yet, but I will. The next morning, he made the call. He found his father's number. The real one, not the story she'd fed him. The phone rang twice before a man's voice answered, cautious, older, but familiar in a way that made Ethan's eyes well up instantly. Dad? The pause on the other end said everything. Then a choked reply. Ethan? Their conversation lasted hours. I stayed quiet beside him, watching years of pain unravel, apologies, regrets, truth finally unburied. His father told him everything. The threats, the manipulation. The night he'd tried to take Ethan with him, but she'd locked the doors and called the police, screaming that he was kidnapping his own son. It wasn't just control, it was obsession. By the time the call ended, Ethan looked like someone who'd finally remembered how to breathe. I'm done protecting her, he said quietly. She doesn't get to rewrite my life again. 2 days later, we went back to her house. Not to argue, not to reconcile, to end it. She opened the door with swollen eyes and a forced smile. Ethan, sweetheart, he handed her the letter. Her face drained of color as she recognized it instantly. Where did you get this? She whispered. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. Everything I did was for you, to keep you safe. Safe from what? He asked. From love? From truth? Her tears came then, heavy, desperate, not of guilt, but of losing control. He left us. He left me. Ethan's tone softened, but his words didn't. Because you wouldn't let him breathe. Because you turned love into prison bars. And you almost did the same to me. For once, she didn't have a response. He continued. Steady. Final. We're done, Mom. You can't call me. You can't visit. You can't touch my life anymore. Her face contorted, part rage, part grief. You can't just erase me. He turned to leave. You already erased yourself. We walked away, the sound of her sobs echoing behind us, but it didn't feel cruel. It felt like justice. Not revenge. Not punishment. Just truth, finally spoken out loud. That night, as we sat together on our porch, Ethan looked out into the dark. She'll never forgive me, he said. I squeezed his hand. You don't need her forgiveness. You just needed to stop living her story. He smiled faintly, exhaling for what felt like the first real time. For the first time in years, I realized something. Sometimes justice doesn't come with handcuffs or headlines. Sometimes it's as simple as walking away and never looking back. But deep down, I knew the scars she left would always whisper. And in the quiet that followed, one truth lingered like smoke in the night. Some people don't lose control because they're weak. They lose it because they can't stand to see someone else finally free. Our house feels different now, quieter, but not the suffocating kind of quiet that used to make me feel watched or weighed down. It's the kind that hums softly like peace finally remembering its way back home. I still find traces of her, my mother-in-law, in the smallest corners of our life. A dish she gifted us tucked behind others, a sweater my husband still wears without thinking, the scent of lavender soap she once insisted I use because it made me smell respectable. But the difference is, those traces don't sting anymore. They just remind me how far we've come. In the beginning, after the confrontation, I thought peace would come easily. I imagined relief, a clear ending, a clean slate. But that's not how healing works. You don't close a chapter like that and walk away unscarred. The hardest part wasn't forgiving her. It was forgiving myself, for staying quiet when I should have spoken, for letting her shape the way I saw my own worth, for mistaking manipulation for love. Because she didn't just try to control Ethan, she tried to control us. And for a while, she succeeded. When I look back now, I can see how subtle it all began. The comments, the harmless comparisons, the guilt wrapped in affection. She didn't yell or threaten. She smiled while she planted doubt. And I watered it without even realizing it. It took everything falling apart to understand one simple truth. Evil doesn't always storm in. Sometimes it whispers in your kitchen while pouring you tea. After the truth came out, Ethan spent weeks talking with his father. Their conversations were awkward at first. Two men who'd loved the same ghost and didn't know how to speak about it. But slowly the distance softened. They began to rebuild what she'd stolen from them. Ethan's father visited last month. He hugged me like he'd known me forever, whispered a quiet thank you into my ear, and looked at his son with pride. The kind of pride that comes from knowing someone broke a generational curse. That night, I asked Ethan, do you ever wish things had gone differently? He thought for a long time before answering. If they had, he said, I might have never learned what love really is. You don't know how to value freedom until you've lived inside someone else's cage. That stayed with me, because that's what this story was never really about. It wasn't just about a mother-in-law trying to replace me or a marriage tested by lies. It was about control, and how it seeps quietly into families, shaping how we love, how we trust, how we forgive. For months, I couldn't understand how a woman could hate another woman simply for being loved. But now I think it wasn't hate, it was fear. She feared being replaced. She feared her son choosing someone else over her. She feared fading into irrelevance. And fear, but when left unchecked, becomes poison. I still remember the last message she sent before we blocked her number. It said, one day you'll understand a mother's pain. Maybe I will. But if I ever become a mother, I hope I'll understand it differently. That love doesn't mean possession. That protecting someone doesn't mean controlling their world. Some nights, when I can't sleep, I replay that family dinner in my mind. The night she tried to humiliate me in front of everyone. I used to flinch at the memory, but now it almost feels empowering. Because that was the night the masks came off. The night truth stopped being something fragile and started being something something fierce. It taught me something I'll never forget. Silence protects liars. Truth protects survivors. Ethan has changed too. The distance in his eyes is gone. He laughs more now, hugs me longer, doesn't flinch when someone mentions his mother. He's learning that it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to love someone who hurt you, as long as you don't let them hurt you again. We're both learning. Love isn't about choosing sides. It's about choosing peace, even if it means walking away from blood to protect your soul. Sometimes I still wonder if she regrets it, what she lost, what she destroyed trying to win a game no one else was playing. But then I remember something my therapist said. Some people don't want peace. They only want control. And once control slips through their fingers, they'll burn everything just to feel powerful again.